Howdy! At last I can talk. Only 75 days until it's time to go to the show. I can hardly wait. That's right, only 75 days until the car show. I want to do the shakedown drive though by June 15th, so that really only gives me 45 days until everything needs to be ready. Let's take a look at what we accomplished this week. I installed the firewall cover after I painted it, sewed a new rubber strip on the bottom, and added a new pad to the back of it. I rebuilt the cowl vent lever to open and close the cowl vent and reinstalled it. As far as the sound deadening material, I added that to the interior of the passenger compartment, and I also made a mat to go under the rubber mat in the trunk. Finally, I stripped all of the upholstery from the frames and got them ready to be cleaned up so they could be recovered. Well, the steering wheel is attached to the steering column, and the column is really nothing more than a pipe. The horn wire goes down through the opening in the center. This thing is just like a spear. I remember seeing a safety film in high school. They were talking about wearing seat belts, and someone had been in an accident and thrown towards the windshield. The photo showed somebody with this pipe coming out through their back, and they were telling you that's why you should wear seat belts. Well, of course, today steering columns are collapsible, so if you were to hit it, it would collapse down and not do the same kind of damage. The jacket that covers the steering column also has the gear shift levers and mechanism, and is actually one of the more complicated parts of the car. Here are the more than 75 pieces that go into making up the steering column and the gear shift mechanism and linkage. As you can see, there's lots of little pieces that go into this assembly. There are a couple of parts I want to show you a little bit more carefully. One question on the bulletin board this week was, how do you keep the steering wheel from shaking up and down? Well, the answer to that is there's actually a bushing that is down inside the column. You can't even see it unless you take the steering wheel off and take some of the other mechanism apart. But that fiber bushing fits tightly around that pipe I showed you, and when it fits properly, it's impossible for the pipe to work itself up and down. It actually looks a lot like the bushing right here for the gear shift rod. It has a metal jacket on it, and then it has a fiber or kind of a cloth filling in it, and that fits tight around the rod. I also wanted to tell you that Dave Cruz has done it again with his rubber parts. I needed the section that holds the steering column support to the dash. I ordered one online, but it was actually for a 46 through 48, and you can see it's far too big for this particular piece, which is on the earlier models, the 30s up to the early 40s. So he made one for me that fits perfectly, and I will be using that. The other thing he made, which is amazing, is the gasket that goes around the steering column tube, support tube. It then fits inside here, and the other piece fits up here. And it's not just a band, it's made exactly the right size, and it also has a groove in the middle that fits into this groove so it doesn't slip out once it's installed. So there are a couple of things which are going to make this whole project a lot nicer when it's finished. There's an upholstery shop next door to the place where I have my painting done. When I went to pick something up the other day, I noticed there was a P15 Plymouth sitting next to the upholstery shop that looked like they were stripping the upholstery from. So I went over and asked if I could look at the car. As I looked, I could see the car was in nearly original condition. In fact, I looked at the service station tag on the door. It was last serviced in 1962, and the car had the same mileage on it now as it did in 1962. I think it was 82,000 miles, I'm not positive. But in any case, the car was in really good condition. I asked what they were doing to it, and he said somebody had bought it for $3,500. He had cut the front springs, blocked the rear springs, done nothing else to the car, was going to have a new interior put in it, and sell it for $15,000 as a rat rod. Now, a couple of things came to mind when I was looking at the car. One is it was a great car that would be ready for restoration for someone who wanted to bring it back to original condition. And the other was the economics didn't make sense. So what do you think about this guy's plan to put a new interior in a car and sell it as a rat rod for $15,000? When it came to deciding what I was going to do about soundproofing material, I had to go back and take a look at what was used originally. And it's a product that's no longer available. If it were available, I don't think you would want to use it. It's some sort of an asphalt board. It's waffled on one side and it's oil impregnated. It's kind of a messy stuff and it gets really dirty. So what I decided to use instead was something called Fat Mat. Now Fat Mat is like Dynamat, works really well, costs quite a bit less. There's actually another brand too that I would suggest you look and do some research about, because these products are similar for our purposes and they actually range a great deal in price depending upon the brand and where you buy them. Now there were a few places where I couldn't use this, like in the trunk floor and under the floorboards, because those have to be taken out from time to time and accessible to service the car. So in those places, I use this closed-cell foam. If you are going to do some soundproofing, I would definitely suggest that you look at some of the modern products. Most of the soundproofing is behind panels where you will never see it anyway, and these things really do a superior job to what was available back in the 1940s. I had a question and a comment this week that I want to address. The question was, how do you replace a rusted out rocker panel on a car? I don't know the answer to that because I'm not an expert on body work, but I do have somebody who does a lot of custom car work, and he's going to answer that question for you.
I'm Bill Price from Finn's Custom and Classics.
The other comment I had was, please explain some of the basic things because I'm brand new to this hobby and I don't know a lot of the vocabulary. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to have Bill Price tell you a little bit about what a rocker panel is and then how they go about replacing it.
This would be considered the rocker panel on a car. It'd go from here to there. This one has a running board, so this would be the rocker panel. On this particular car, we welded it on the running board onto everything. But to replace a rocker panel, you would cut it out, get a new one, or make a new one, and then weld it in.
That's about it for this week. You may notice a difference in the audio and video quality, and that's because my camera's in the shop being worked on. Hopefully next week or the week after I'll have my camera back and then we can do some better quality videos. So until we meet again, I'll see you on the road.